In the strange and equally intriguing world of true crime history, there are cases that truly shock and intrigue you with their twisted narratives and eerie details. Today, I'm going to tell you about one such story that'll send shivers down your spine. The case I'm talking about is that of Caius Veiovis, a man whose name became synonymous with horror, brutality, and a haunting transformation. Imagine, if you will, a man whose appearance seems to be plucked from the pages of a chilling and horrifying Gothic novel. His face covered with tattoos and crowned with horn-like implants to give himself an appearance of a devil, a walking horror, or someone from a much darker, twisted, and scarier world. Caius Veiovis, born as Roy Gutfinski Jr., is a figure that blurs the boundaries between reality and nightmare. But mind you, this is not merely a costume portrayal or a cosplay. The appearance that he created is a deliberate manifestation of a darker identity, a chilling narrative that unfolded in the dark, shadowy corners of Massachusetts. But today, we aren't talking about Caius just because of his odd appearance. This case is about the crime committed by a man who was so much invested in becoming a horrific character that after changing his appearance, he did something so horrible that the world will always remember him as the Vampire Killer. Welcome to the unsettling story of the Vampire Killer, a saga that intertwines a gruesome transformation, a nightmarish triple murder, an unyielding investigation, and a courtroom battle that captured the attention of a nation.
Now I'll see you all in hell, too. You remember that. Every one of you, I'll see you in hell.
Caius wasn't always a Satan-loving guy with horns and tattoos on his face. Born and raised in Pittston, he lived under the name Roy Gutfinski Jr., with his parents Roy Gutfinski Sr. and Trina Gutfinski. Now, some sources say that Roy was actually adopted, but his birth certificate lists his custodial parents also as his birth parents. From psychiatric evaluations to reports from doctors and words from everyone around his Caius wasn't a normal child. He used to like being isolated, most of the time kept to himself, and from an early age started having problems with the authorities. Turning himself into a devout follower of Satan during his teenage years, Caius started getting more and more fascinated with this type of stuff as he grew older. Believing that he was an actual devotee of Satan and an actual vampire, he started getting satanic tattoos on his body. But as the time passed by, only tattoos didn't seem enough to him. In 2008, he changed his name from Roy Gutfinski Jr. to Caius Veiovis. Now, for those of you who don't know, let me tell me the reason behind this change. You see, Roy had started to think of himself as some sort of creature or being from hell. So he chose a name that was fitting to his thoughts. Caius is a well-known vampire from the Twilight series, while the second name Veiovis was taken from a Roman god who, according to the mythology, escaped from hell. Though no one knows for sure when exactly he did this, it was during this time that he started physically altering his appearance. In order to look like a Dracula or devil, he got himself some subdermal implants that looked like he had horns on his head. Similarly, he got spikes pierced into his nose and eyebrows and got even more tattoos on his face. Now, Veiovis' attempt to make his appearance similar to that of a vampire wasn't simply a coincidental quirk. It was a deliberate metamorphosis that hinted at the dark path he would later take on. His problems with the law started at a mere age of 13, when he was arrested for having a double-bladed assault-style knife on him. A counselor after this incident said that he exhibited very dangerous and threatening behavior and doesn't want to change. 1 year later, at the age of 14, he was put under probation and spent the next couple of years in Maine Youth Center, where he was being treated for substance abuse and behavior disorders. In April 1994, he was put into St. Mary's Hospital in Lewiston, where he assaulted one of the staff members. After turning 19, he was again admitted to the state's psychiatric hospital after he had assaulted his girlfriend and threatened her boss using an axe. In 1999, Caius did something that was extremely horrific as compared to his previous crimes. He and his 17-year-old girlfriend, Deanne Jones, took a 16-year-old girl to an apartment in Augusta. He then watched while his girlfriend took a razor and made a huge cut on the girl's back. The couple then went on to lick the blood and kiss. The teenager went to hospital and when they saw a 7-inch cut requiring 32 stitches, they immediately informed the police. After the arrest, Caius told police that he was a vampire, but one who doesn't have any fangs and can go out in the daylight. During the trial, prosecutors told the court that Caius calls himself a Satan worshiper and a bloodthirsty vampire, one who has thirst for blood of himself and that of others. The court found the couple guilty of aggravated assault, and with this Caius was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Calling him a serious harm to society, a Maine prosecutor recommended that Caius should be kept behind bars for as long as possible. After being released on parole, Caius again found himself in hot waters in 2006 when he was charged with kidnapping. He and another man allegedly tried holding 2 strippers in a hotel room. After some time, the charges were dropped, but Caius ended up in jail again because of violating his parole. The nightmarish murders. Despite a long history of troubles and crimes that in no way are normal, any of the above-mentioned things aren't the reason behind Caius being discussed by us today. Yep, his life story becomes even more horrifying after he was released from jail. So what happened? Caius was charged with a triple murder, a murder that truly rattled the quiet streets of Massachusetts. 3 unsuspecting men fell victim to a sinister plot while losing their lives in a brutal murder. The saga starts when Adam Lee Hall of Peru beat up a fella named David Glasser with a baseball bat in July 2009. He even tried to disrepute David as a witness to this case by trying to frame him for an armed robbery in the state of New York. The case went on, and 2 years later, in August 2011, a few weeks prior to his testimony against Hall in court, Glasser, along with his 2 roommates Edward Frampton and Robert Chadwell, suddenly disappeared from their apartment on Linden Street. With no clue whatsoever about the disappearance, their dismembered bodies were eventually discovered 2 weeks later in Beckett. The case, with all the media attention, and because of its horrific nature, turned into a big one in the state of Massachusetts and all of America. According to investigators, the heavily inked man, Caius Veiovis, is accused of helping David Chalou and Adam Lee Hall kidnap, torture, murder, and dismember David Glasser, Edward Frampton, and Robert Chadwell in Berkshire County on August 28, 2011. They killed Glasser because he was expected to testify against Hall, a member of the Hells Angels biker gang, in an unrelated assault case. The 2 other men, Edward Frampton and Robert Chadwell, were murdered because they witnessed Glasser's abduction. The investigation. Law enforcement agencies embarked on a relentless pursuit of truth, determined to piece together the puzzle of the gruesome crime. Adam Lee Hall, Caius Veiovis, and David Chalou were soon arrested and indicted on charges of murder, kidnapping, and witness intimidation. Another man named David Casey was also indicted on the charges of being an accessory to murder, kidnapping, and witness intimidation because he helped them bury the bodies in Beckett. While Hall's involvement in the case was pretty straightforward, Caius was caught because of his unique appearance and a coincidence. So what happened was that a Home Depot employee testified that he recognizes Caius because of his appearance. The witness claimed that Caius came to his store on August 24, 2011 because he wanted to buy some saws. The employee, William Gregory, told court that even though the store was packed on that day, he was struck by Veiovis's appearance. He left the store after buying a Starfold wrench set. The courtroom drama. After the arrests and initial proceedings, Caius absolutely denied any of the charges on him, saying that he has no involvement whatsoever in the murders. Because of extensive media involvement and publicity, the case was moved from Berkshire's to Hampton Superior Court in Springfield. The trials of all 3 alleged murderers were separated, with Caius still being adamant that he was innocent. The trial of Caius Veiovis and his co-conspirators was a spectacle that commanded attention and gripped the collective imagination. Families of the victims found themselves seeking closure with their eyes fixed on the unfolding drama within the courtroom walls.
There's something that's never going to be filled. I mean, because there are questions that I have that only he can answer, you know what I mean? And he's not going to do that, just like he never apologized because he's not sorry for what he did.
According to Caius's defense team, there was no scientific evidence that could link his involvement to the case. They were also of the opinion that Caius's unusual appearance will have a negative effect on jury while making a decision in this case. In early 2014, 3 years after the murders, Adam Lee Hall and David Chalou were convicted and sentenced in separate trials on charges of murder, kidnapping, and intimidation of a witness. Both of them were sentenced to life sentences without any possibility of parole. After these two trials, the trail of Caius Veiovis started. As legal teams clashed and evidence was presented, the courtroom became a stage for justice to prevail. After 6 days of some serious deliberation, the jury reached their verdict and declared that Caius was in fact guilty of all 3 counts of murder, kidnapping, and intimidation of a witness. As soon as the jury read out their verdict, Caius started shouting in the courtroom, saying, "I'll see you all in hell. Remember that, every fucking one of you. I'll see you all in hell."
Yeah, I'll see you all in hell, too. You remember that. Every one of you, I'll see you in hell.
Caius was sentenced with 3 consecutive life sentences, but he and his legal team wasn't too happy at the verdict. His legal team was of the opinion that prosecution has no DNA evidence or any weapons that can link Caius to the triple homicide. After the verdict, Berkshire District Attorney David Capeless said he is gratified by the verdicts and hopes it helps the victims' families by ending the constant reminder to them of what has happened to their loved ones.
We had never wavered in our belief that we had charged all 3 of these people properly, that we had the evidence, and fortunately this jury had seen that as well as the other 2 juries.
While on the other hand, defense attorney James Reardon Jr. said he disagreed with the verdict but respects the jury's diligence. He also said that, "I always have confidence in juries, and I still believe strongly in the American jury system." He told the press that Caius has an automatic appeal, and he hopes that the verdict will be overturned. During the proceedings, Caius, maintaining that he's innocent, said that, "I've been in isolation for 3 years now. I've refused to talk to the cops, and I've turned down all the plea deals offered me from the beginning." He also claimed that the district attorney has told his lawyer that he knew I did not kill these men. Caius said that the prosecutor has offered him a plea deal that he refused, saying, "My hand was not in this. I will not let this man sell me my own hide at the price of my integrity. I would rather spend the rest of my life in prison rather than make that deal." Conclusion: all 3 of the convicted criminals are serving their life sentences with no chance of parole. Caius Veiovis submitted an appeal for a retrial, but his application was rejected. The decision stated that the state Supreme Judicial Court affirms the convictions and concludes that the defendant is not entitled to relief under the law. After this decision, it's confirmed that Adam Lee Hall, David Chalu, and Caius Veiovis, the vampire killer, will remain behind bars until the day they die. As time passes, the memory of Caius Veiovis certainly serves as a chilling reminder of the capacity for darkness that lies within us all. His transformation from an ordinary individual to a symbol of terror capable of doing horrific things remains a cautionary tale, urging us to confront the depths of malevolence that can lurk beneath the surface.